You can have it all, right? That's what some of us have been told. It's what I continue to hear from some people who are trying to sell that myth, but it is exactly that. It's a myth. So I'm going to talk in this episode about the hard choices you have to make, because you can't have the most amazing career, be the most amazing parent, the most amazing partner in the world. You can't have it all, but you can have what matters most to you. I'm Larry Cornett, and this is Invincible Career. So this is issue 645 if you go to newsletter.invinciblecareer.com. I had a conversation like this recently. This isn't that uncommon. I think I used to hear it a lot more often when I lived in Silicon Valley, because there is a prevailing myth that just doesn't seem to die in Silicon Valley, and probably other places as well, that you can somehow have it all. And there are people who believe they have it all, which is funny, because if you take a hard look at their life, they clearly do not have it all. They're losing some things in order to pursue others. But anyway, this comes up during conversations that usually go something like this. And I'm curious if you've had a conversation like this with someone. Someone will say, I want wild adventure in my life, but I must feel safe at all times. I want to quit my job. I have to quit my job. I have to get away. But I can't give up this nice lifestyle that I enjoy. I crave more freedom. I really want time freedom in my life. But I dread losing security. I hate working for someone else. I've had a series of toxic bosses and managers. I hate it, but I'm too afraid to work for myself. Or kind of a catch-all, I want a better life. I deserve a better life, but I can't make any changes. I can't change anything about it. I won't change anything about it. I suppose that's the big question, right? There's a lot of can't language used when it's really a won't. And the thing is, if it were easy to have it all, we would already have it, right? We would all have everything. We would have exactly the dream life that we want. Why would you deny yourself that? Why would you deny yourself a dream life if it were easy to create? Why would you bother to suffer? Why would you spend every day or week punishing yourself unnecessarily with a job you hate or a life you're not happy with? You wouldn't. But the reason you're feeling stuck, and many people feel stuck, is that it's not easy. It's not easy. It is really, really hard to build a life that gives you what you want in balance with what you need. Those wants and those needs. And the hard pill to swallow is something has to give. Something has to give. You must give up something to gain something. And that's kind of what I've learned, as I mentioned, about 99% of the time when people say, I can't. What they really mean is, I won't. They could make the necessary changes if they really wanted to, but they don't. They don't really want to. Because the pain of remaining the same, of staying in that life that sometimes they describe as miserable, is slightly less, that pain is slightly less than their fear of change, their fear of the unknown. Now, when I look back to 2010, which is when I left my corporate career behind, so it's been over 15 years now since I've done that. I spent probably the next 5 years trying to have it all. I wanted the freedom of escaping my old 9 to 5 job. It's more like a 7 a.m. to midnight job. It was not 9 to 5. So I wanted the freedom of escaping that. I wanted the stress relief of leaving toxic bosses behind. I mean, I had a couple of good bosses in my career, but most were so-so, and unfortunate number were pretty toxic. They were pretty bad. So I wanted the relief of escaping that too. I wanted the sheer joy of owning my time every day, that time freedom, which is an amazing feeling. It's wonderful. And I wanted the pleasure of reclaiming my health, my fitness, and rediscovering what it felt like to be capable and healthy again, which I did. I've talked about that enough. But I also wanted to maintain my expensive home, my mortgage that I had, which in Silicon Valley is pretty expensive. I had a fancy car. I've talked about the BMW I used to have. And, a fairly luxurious lifestyle. I won't say that we were crazy, but, we didn't really think twice about going out to eat and having nice meals and buying things and traveling. We didn't think too much about that. And I tried really hard for those years, really hard. But eventually the harsh reality came crashing down. It took about 5 years. The reality was I just could not have it all. I couldn't have all those freedoms and all that enjoyment and also have the expensive lifestyle and living in the Bay Area of California. I just couldn't do it all. I couldn't have it all. So we discussed a new plan. My wife and I sat down and thought through what it would take to make a change. And I'd had kind of a wake-up call. I've talked about that before. A wake-up call with my health, and a wake-up call where I spent one day 4 hours on the freeway. And I was like, is this any way to live? This is not having it all. Driving 4 hours on a freeway back and forth from work. So we decided that there were things we were going to have to give up to create a new life, the lifestyle we desired. So one was we had to downsize our home. We had a pretty big house in the Bay Area, more house than we needed, to be honest. So we had to downsize, which we did. We had to leave Silicon Valley. It is an incredibly expensive place to live. It's one of the probably in the top 5 in the world. New York's pretty expensive. Tokyo's pretty expensive. Hawaii's really expensive. Silicon Valley is very expensive. It's outrageous. The cost of living, the cost of a home. Most young people can't afford to buy a home there. Had to sell the luxury car and get rid of that. It made no sense anymore. Didn't want that albatross around my neck. More importantly, we had to learn how to live more simply. We had to have a budget. We had to enjoy some of the simpler things in life that don't take a lot of money, which in the end up being better anyway. We just had to make a lot of changes, right? We couldn't keep doing the same thing and then magically have it all. And I'm not going to tell you it was easy. Of course it isn't. And that's kind of the point of this episode. If it was easy, you would already have it all. Everybody would have it all, right? It was hard, but it was worth it. And within a few years, we knew it was the right decision. What we had gained was worth far more than what we had lost. The time freedom, the time with my family, getting my health back, getting our fitness back, being able to make decisions about how we wanted to spend our days and our weeks without someone telling us we couldn't. I mean, there's so much that we gained that I never could have had if I'd stayed on the same path. It was well worth it. Well worth giving up what we decided to give up. And I know you probably hear it too. You probably have other people telling you, yeah, you can have it all. You can have it all. I've seen the post. I've seen the books. I've seen plenty of BS online about that, coming from people who eventually are exposed as frauds and not having it all, and leasing their Ferrari, or their marriage is a complete nightmare. They end up divorced. I mean, all kinds of horrible stuff. It's like, come on, they're trying to sell you something. So I'm going to be maybe one of the few honest people that's going to give it to you straight. You will have to make some hard choices. If you want more of what you want in life, it's not an additive process. You don't just get more and more of what you want. You can't have it all. You're going to have to make some hard choices, some trade-offs. So one of the things you can do, pretty simple, is to create a spreadsheet. Use Excel or Numbers or Google Sheets or whatever you like to use. Do it in paper if you want. And have 2 columns. You can have a column A, which is what you want to gain, and a column B, what you want to give up. So decide what it is that you want most in your life, and put those items in the gain column. And I'm gonna, I guess you could do whatever you want. I was gonna say, I want you to be somewhat realistic, and I want you to focus on things that really matter. But hey, if you want to put a yacht in column A, go for it. There's probably going to be something you have to do to get that. There's going to be something you have to sacrifice. But hey, so have your gain column. That's column A. And then choose what you are willing to leave behind. What are you willing to sacrifice? What do you want to give up? So you can have those things that are in that column A, the gain column. So put those things that you are willing to give up in column B. That's your give up column. So you have 2 columns. Now you need to create a plan and a schedule. What's your timeline? And build that roadmap to say, how do I start giving up more of what's in column B to gain more of what's in column A, those things you really want. And for me, that was time with my children. It was time for my health. It was freedom. It was freedom from toxic bosses and meaningless work, So it can be freedom from things too, right? And by the way, I mean, this process, it can take years. This isn't something that happens in a matter of days, weeks, or even months. I'm pretty sure this process took me several years. I mean, some of the planning that for things I originally wanted and wanted to gain, it took like a decade or more. I mean, it takes time. So go slow if you want, and if you need to, or if it requires time, but don't wait too long if you have control over that. And don't wait too long to start thinking about the things you want to give up, because sometimes you have to do that first. You'll have to do that first to make room for what's in the column B, or column A, I'm sorry, the gain column. Because that column B, the give up stuff, that's a trap. That's a noose that tightens a little more every year with the new things that you add to it. And the longer that column B list gets, the harder it's going to be to escape later, right? It's going to be a lot harder. I was just pointing this out today. I was talking about how people are constantly building and polishing the golden bars on their golden cage. And I've mentioned this before, that they talk about golden handcuffs at work. That's very common in Silicon Valley when you get stock options. They call it golden handcuffs. And it keeps you around for years because you're waiting for those to vest, and that's a lot of money to give up. So you're stuck even if you don't like your job anymore. But we also build a golden cage. We get bigger and bigger homes and nicer cars and more extravagant lifestyles, and we're polishing the bars on that golden cage. And it's beautiful. But the more you do that, the harder it is going to be to escape later. Because that column A, that gain list, that's a delight. That's the stuff you dream of in your life. And the longer you delay gaining the items on that list, the less time you will have to enjoy them. That's another factor to consider. Sadly, most people wait. They wait until retirement to pursue that list. I mean, I used to think that way. A lot of people think that way. They're like, well, when the day comes that I can retire and I've saved up a lot and all my investments are paying off and my kids are off, out of the nest, all that kind of good stuff. Now I can pursue that list. And it's things like travel and adventure, spending more time with their partner, learning something, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff that people think they have to wait until retirement to pursue and think they can wait until that older age to pursue. And so when they finally reach that point, they don't get to enjoy that lifestyle for as long as they could have. All those things that they were like, I love doing this and I'm happy doing this. But now you put it off for 10, 15 years, and that's 10, 15 years you didn't get to do that or enjoy it. Even worse, some of those items have an expiration date. That's like I'm going to climb Mount Everest. It's like at 80, I'm sure someone's done it. Are you going to do it? There's a lot of stuff that you get to the point where you're just too old to pursue them anymore. Or the opportunity has passed. It's too late. I don't care how much you want to do it, how much you want to experience it. You just can't, Spending time with your children, well, there comes a day where they're not children anymore. And you can't go back in time. And I know people have tried this. I'm not joking. I know people have said, hey, I'm going to do the things with my children that I wish I could have done when they were young. And the kids are like, I don't have time for this. I'm not even interested in this. I'm too old. I got a job. I have a family. I don't have time. So the opportunity is gone. It's too late. So how do you do this? How do you make this process a little easier? Because it's hard. It's not easy. Well, after observing other people doing this and seeing what it took for me to do this and learning the hard way, there are a few things that can help. One is to create some wiggle room in your professional career. And what I mean by that is it can be a little bit like a cattle chute. And if you didn't grow up in the Midwest, maybe you only know what I'm talking about. But there is this idea of a funnel, a wooden cattle chute that you send cattle down and it kind of narrows down until only one can go. And then they can't turn around. They get to the point at the very end, they can't turn around. And so it's usually, there's like a cattle chute so you can brand cattle, stuff like that. So a similar thing happens in your professional career. If you climb the ladder, if you specialize and you hyper specialize in what you do and what kind of company can hire you and where you have to live, the wiggle room kind of disappears. And so there aren't a lot of things you can do to kind of change things, to live somewhere differently, to work somewhere differently, to pursue a different type of occupation. You've kind of locked yourself in. So you can deliberately create a little more wiggle room in your professional career by having some diversity in what you do and the kind of skills you have, the domain expertise that you have, what kind of company you could work for, where you could work. Intentionally think about that. And that's a big reason I'm a huge fan of creating your own business, because that's the ultimate wiggle room. You really get to control it. Similar, become a lifelong learner. So if you become a lifelong learner, you avoid stagnation. You avoid being left behind. It gives you more options. Optionality is power. It makes things easier. It's going to make it easier for you to be in control and make choices and decide what trade-offs you want. Developing flexible streams of income outside of your primary job. When you are locked into that job and all your income comes from that job, you don't have a lot of power. You don't have a lot of flexibility. You don't have negotiating power. So, if your company's like, yeah, you're going to relocate, you're moving to an entirely new state and city, and that's your only income, and you are in a place where you don't have a lot of wiggle room, what are you going to do? Are you going to lose your job, or are you going to say, okay, I'll sell my house and uproot my family and move to another state? If you have flexible streams of income, you've been building those up, yeah, you've got some negotiating power. You've got some confidence. You could say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. And push back. Worst case, you have to quit the job, or they give you a severance package. But now you have these other streams of income that can carry you for the months it takes to find something better, something new. You're not feeling desperate. Desperation makes for bad decisions. It does not give you power. The other thing, which is somewhat relevant, is building revenue models, those income streams that aren't locked into specific locations. That's not good, because again, that doesn't let you have flexibility. Like we moved, and I was able to do that because my revenue model didn't depend on a geographic location. I work with people all over the world. I work from Zoom or my phone or whatever it might be. I do a lot of online stuff and collaboration. Some of my clients I've never even met in person for years. We've worked together for years. I've never met them. So I'm not tied into a specific location. I can pick up and leave and go somewhere else where it's beautiful, or it's a better cost of living. I just spent 6 weeks in Alaska, spending a ton of time with my children. And it was really easy to do. I hopped on Zoom calls on the wireless in my son's apartment, and I was up and running. That's pretty nice. That gives me a lot of choice in what I want to do. It makes it easier for me to have more of what I want and less of what I don't want in my life. This is an important one, this next one. And everybody abuses it. I did a little bit too. Do not increase the cost of your lifestyle as your income increases. As your income goes up, don't keep pace. And everybody does this. I shouldn't say everybody, but I bet a significant percentage of people do this. I mean, it's kind of natural. At some point, when we're young, unless you came with a silver spoon in your mouth, you were barely scraping by. You could barely afford groceries. You were sharing an apartment with a bunch of people. So when you got your first real job and you could get your own place, it's like, yeah, you want to have a few nice things. You're going to buy a car. Maybe you buy nicer clothing, better laptop, whatever. You want to have a slightly better lifestyle. But the problem is, as our income keeps going up to your first 6-figure job, your mid 6-figure, high 6-figure, some people become millionaires. Now they do things like, well, you know what? I need a summer home. I need 5 vehicles. I might need a private plane. They have their lifestyle cost keep pace or even surpass their income. And that is a trap. That is a trap. I'm working with people that they've got this really expensive lifestyle and they cannot take a reduction in salary. They would like to. They would like to take a less stressful job in a company that maybe isn't, one of the premier companies, but it would be so much better for their mental and emotional health. And they're like, but I can't. I need this income. I need to make the kind of money I've been making. I can't take a step down. I can't take a step back. They're trapped. So I'm going to tell you, if you can, do your best to keep a cap on that cost. Don't let your lifestyle get out of control as you're making more money. Instead, bank it. Invest in your freedom. Wouldn't it be nice to have a break-even point where you're like, wow, I can stop working. I can retire much younger than I ever thought I could. Related, aggressively manage your expenses and see if you can reduce them. So not only managing that cost of lifestyle creep, cut some stuff. It is very easy for expenses to kind of get out of control. We all have expenses we're not even aware of. People are paying for streaming services, and I end up paying for a lot of online services because I test stuff for my business, and then I see later, it's like, oh, geez, I forgot to turn that off. I don't need that. Yeah, I just burned $1,000. That's not good. That's $1,000 I could have put into my retirement account. I could have invested. So yeah, stay on top of those expenses. Try to reduce them. This is a game, but it's a game that buys you your freedom. It's a game that buys you the gain column, which is fantastic. Continuously feed funds into your financial cushion so that you have some breathing room. I've done this. A lot of people do this. The people that don't, again, this makes for really bad decision making because you don't feel safe. You don't feel empowered to push back. You quit your job or you get laid off. And if your cushion's only a month or two, now you're going to take any old job, even if it sounds like a nightmare. You're going to make a desperate decision. But if you have a cushion, it gives you confidence. It gives you breathing room. You could test an idea for a business and give it some time because it takes time to have income coming in. Versus, oh no, if it doesn't make any revenue in the first 2 weeks, I quit and go back to a job. So feed that financial cushion. Have some breathing room in your life. Completely different one. Get outside of your bubble, your social bubble, to expand and diversify your network. One that many people are guilty of. A lot of the people in their friend circle and colleagues and professional network are people who live near them, who work with them, who are in a similar industry or the exact same industry, same profession even. I remember when I was young, a whole bunch of my network and my friends were other designers in the tech industry. So I had this network of friends and colleagues that were all designers and we all worked in tech. It wasn't very diverse. It didn't feed new ideas into my life. It didn't give me new ways of thinking about the world. And when you do get out of that and you meet people like that, it opens your mind to unexpected opportunities. You start to see new ways to make money, those side hustle things I was talking about. You see new ways of living. So important. I got into that trap in the Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area, the keeping up with the Joneses. We all need nice homes. We all need multiple cars. We need luxury cars. We need to take vacations in France. And then you meet other people that are like, yeah, I don't care about that. I go backpacking in the mountains and I camp near a lake and I fish and I just wake up to the sun, and it seems silly until you do it. And I know this isn't for everybody, but may not be something for you. Maybe something else is, right? Maybe fishing on a beach in Mexico would wake you up in a whole new way of living. But when you meet new people, you expand your network, you diversify, you become open to opportunities, you see new ways of living. Again, this is going to set your mind free. It's going to make it easier to give up stuff that you thought you couldn't part with and more likely to gain the stuff you really desire. The other important one is to invest in your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health. Again, this is important. It gives you stability. It gives you a foundation. One of my biggest expenses as a solopreneur is my insurance, my health insurance. That could be a big problem if I had a lot of health issues. And I know some of this is just pure luck and genetics. I feel blessed by that. I know that, this is something not everybody has. But I also have worked really, really hard for the past 17 years to invest in my physical health. I exercise every day, no matter what, even when I travel. I joined a gym and I exercised, hiking like anywhere between 5 to 12 miles a day each week. Running on the weekends, trail running like 5 to 7 miles. I lift weights 1 to 2 hours every day. That's not easy. That takes a commitment. That's time. I have to make trade-offs to do that. Why do I do that? Well, I like my physical health. I don't want my health to decline. I like having low blood pressure. I like managing my cholesterol. I like not ever getting sick. I rarely get sick because I try to eat really well and I exercise And I want to live longer. I want to spend more time with my children and grandchildren. So invest in this stuff because it gives you more freedom and more flexibility to choose the things you want to do. An important one is calculating a very realistic risk assessment of what you want to pursue. I talked about this with a guest on my other podcast, Corey Vinny, recently. And I'd link that if you want to listen to it. It's my Invincible Life podcast. So if you go to newsletter.invinciblecareer.com, this is issue 645, and I linked that conversation with Corey, which is a fascinating conversation about them preparing to sail around the world. And people were telling him, they're like, how can you do that? That's terrifying. It's dangerous. What a huge risk you're taking. And he said, you do know it's more dangerous for me to get on the freeway every day. More people die in car accidents than boating, sailing accidents. Do a more realistic risk assessment. I do the same thing with my hiking. When we were hiking in Alaska, and it's like, oh no, there's bears. Aren't you terrified? When I hike here, people are like, bears and mountain lions. You shouldn't hike. How many people have died from a bear attack compared to how many people have died in car accidents and other types of things that happen in this country? So do a realistic assessment of what you want to pursue, and then you'll know what you're getting into. And most likely it's not as risky as you think it is. And then build backup plans. So you should always build a backup plan. Think about the worst case scenario. And what will you do if that happens? How bad will it be? How will you recover? What's the backup plan? I talk about that with running a business. It's like, worst case, the business completely fails. You're not making any money. Okay, get a job again. You already had a job. It's not like you've never had a job before. Get a job, figure out what went wrong, try again later. There's a lot of things where you can say, okay, well, how am I going to recover from this? If I move here and I don't like it, if it's not working out, what are we going to do? Well, maybe we've got a contingency plan. Maybe we've been renting, so it's easy to leave. We'll go somewhere else. So always create a backup plan. And the other thing is to make peace with this, to have the confidence and courage to do this, is to realize that intelligent and ambitious people bounce back from failure. It's not the end of the world. A lot of the stuff that you're going to talk about doing, that you're going to want to do in your column of gains, it's not going to be stuff like, I hope it's not stuff like, I want to dive into a volcano and see if I could survive. It's nothing crazy. It's going to be something that you're like, hey, if it works, fantastic. What a dream. I did this. If it doesn't, I'll bounce back from it. I have a backup plan. I'll come back and I'll figure it out and start over. People do that. People change careers. People pursue something they always wanted to do, and sometimes it doesn't work and they bounce back from it. So yeah, I mentioned that, and I linked this with Corey Vinny, but yeah, how he was preparing for a life of adventure with his husband, and what they had to do to sacrifice to pursue it, what they had to give up, their careers, well-paying careers they'd been doing for decades, managing their expenses and their cost and saving money so that they could do this, so they could sail around the world for the next year. He knew this isn't, oh, I can have it all. I can have a fantastic, high-profile, six-figure career. My partner can too. And we're going to sail around the world, and our boss will be like, that's fine. Don't worry about work. Just sail around the world. We'll keep paying you. It's like, no, you can't have that type of adventure and 100% security and keep your job and keep your income. You can't. And as he talks about in the podcast episode, which I highly recommend you listen to, he could have had all the safety and security and money of the career, but then no adventure in his life. And that made him feel sick to his stomach. He's like, I can't imagine that. I don't want to live a life of regret. I'm going to push through my fear. I'm going to have the courage to try this. And I don't want to have a life of regret. So that's kind of my point, is that if you want something that's really important to you, you have to go after it, and you have to figure out what you're going to trade off to get it. You don't want to have regrets at the end of your days in your 80s, 90s, or if you live to be 100, where you're like, I really wish I'd tried that. I wish I'd done that, but it's too late now. I wish I had traveled the world. I wish I'd spent more time with my children. I wish I'd taking care of my health. I wish I'd learned how to play guitar. Whatever it is, you don't want those regrets. But it's going to be impossible to have it all. I know no one that has it all. I don't know anyone that has a tremendously successful career, makes hundreds of millions of dollars, travels the world, mansions, has an amazing partner in their life, great parent, all their physical health. They have everything. They don't. Something is not great in their life. So you got to make those choices, and it's better to make it intentionally versus it just happens, or it happens accidentally. That you keep doing the things in that one column and just putting off the other things. And then that's your trade-off. Your trade-off is I never gained the things that I really wanted, that were really important to me. I was too afraid to give up anything. I refused to give up anything, so I never gained it. So you certainly won't have it all in that situation. Anyway, I would love to hear more about this. You can leave comments on the newsletter post that is associated with this. I'd love to hear what you'd like to pursue, what's in your gain column, what would you really like in your life, and what are you willing to trade off to get that. Until next time, I wish you the best of luck in becoming an opportunity magnet for the best things in life.